Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 221. Exorcism. Li Jinglong and Hung Jun left the Tenli of Heavenly River. The two stood in front of the dry river bed. Hung Jun suddenly remembered something and said, "Jinglong, if I took the Qinji chain into the dream and my father unlock it for me, then in reality." "No." Li Jinglong said, "The dream cannot change what had happened already." "Then how did you do it the last time?" Hong Jun asked in surprise. Li Jinglong said, "That's because Yuan Kun had already changed the trajectory of fate and let me go back to establish the cause and effect." Li Jinglong explained to Hung Jun the deductions him and Chu Yongxi had come up with. Hung Jun became more and more confused the more he listened. Finally, he just uttered, "I don't understand." Li Jinglong suddenly burst into laughter. Hung Jun got a little annoyed and asked in an exasperated manner, "What are you laughing at?" Whenever I explain things, Li Jinglong laughed some more before calming down and continued, "I just thought that whenever I explain things you would definitely say these words, 'I don't understand.'" Hong Jun said anxiously, "How can you still laugh? A battle is right in front of us." Li Jinglong said, "Although we cannot change what had already occurred, we can change the cause of the future. Once we go back to the past and change the cause again, the effect will be reflected in the future." Hung Jun, "Which cause?" Li Jinglong said, "The sword of wisdom." "Where is the sword of wisdom?" Hung Jun asked again. "I can't say it at the moment." Li Jinglong said, "Because you are destined not to know. We can't change the past nor can we change the present, but we can change the future that was just about to happen. As long as I go back and establish the cause and effect, your Qinji chain will be unlocked." Hung Jun said, "But you just said that the Qinji chain cannot be unlocked." "That's in the past and at the present." Li Jinglong said, "It does not have to be in the future." Hung Jun gave up trying to understand all of this and finally said, "All right, I will just listen to you and believe in you." Then Li Jinglong held Hung Jun's hand and looked at him. "You have to go back." Hung Jun said. "Don't you have anything else to say?" Li Jinglong asked. Hung Jun stared into Li Jinglong's eyes just like the first time they looked at each other face to face. "Will Zenji no longer jump over my wall?" Hung Jun murmured. "Do you regret it?" Li Jinglong whispered, "It's been 16 years, but it felt as if it was just yesterday." At that moment, Hung Jun's heart surged like a tsunami, breaking through all of his defenses. He reached out and wrapped his arms around Li Jinglong's neck. He kissed him deeply, their lips and tongue intertwining. Li Jinglong never expected that Hong Jun would respond to him in this way and immediately reciprocated. He hugged and kissed him until he pressed him down under the bridge of the dry river bed. "What do you call this again?" Li Jinglong couldn't hold back anymore. He was panting as he unbuttoned his robes. Hung Jun closed his eyes and with a smile on his lips, answered, "Dragons and snake called it intertwining tails. The birds called it mating." Then he frowned slight as he felt Li Jinglong's burning body temperature and aggressive invasion. "Zhao Yun, go away a little further," Li Jinglong said in a clear voice. "I'm not looking." Zhao Yun sat next to a pier on the bridge, looking at the sky and the moon and continued, "I know you don't like to be watched by others." Hung Jun hugged Li Jinglong's naked and scarred shoulders. He still remembered the first time he saw Li Jinglong's body. His muscles were defined and his skin was fair. However, he was now covered in scars. Almost all of his visible scars were all obtained because of himself. His fingers streaked across Li Jinglong's back and neck. Li Jinglong frowned as he looked at him, his movements were gentle as if he was afraid of bullying Hung Jun. Hung Jun whispered in Li Jinglong's ear, "Did you feel it?" In an instant, flames burst out of their souls. The light of the heart lamp illuminated each of their souls. Hung Jun gently bit Li Jinglong's ear. Li Jinglong only felt that familiar soul seemed to merge with him again for a moment as if it was just the right and proper thing to happen. They originally came from the same source, surging and separating like a river only to come together once again in the end. As the moon fell to the west mountain, Hung Jun and Zhao Yun went away. Li Jinglong lay naked at the bottom of the bridge, his body covered with muddy robe. The best thing that ever happened in my life was when I climbed that wall and meet you. Li Jinglong said to himself as he gazed in the direction where Hung Jun departed. Then he sat up, put on his outer robes and thought for a moment. Afterward, he tore off a piece of fabric and wrote a note that said, "Act in accordance to the situation." Then, he flipped over and left the bottom of the bridge. He took out some lihun pollen, sniffed it and sneezed. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. High in the sky above Luoyang, the sun and moon were dim. The thunder was dark and gloomy as the ancient giant beast burst into silent ripples. Hung Jun and Li Jinglong held each other's hands tightly, but a huge force instantly pulled Li Jinglong away. "Jinglong! Wait for me!" Li Jinglong shouted. Hung Jun was startled and then flew forward. Darkness burst out, blotting out the sky and completely engulfing him. The scene around him rapidly changed and spun. Li Jinglong instantly saw many scenes of death of himself and Hung Jun. Fate was born like a bubble, expanding and bursting. Willow leaves fluttered in the air, then Chang'an, one bright and beautiful spring day. With a whoosh, he returned to his old place of residence. "Xiaoyu," Li Jinglong subconsciously said. There was no response. Li Jinglong only stood quietly in front of the parasol tree. "Yuan Kun," Li Jinglong said tentatively again. There was still no respond. Li Jinglong lowered his head to observe himself. Unlike the last time he entered the Zhuangzhou's butterfly dream realm, he wasn't in his younger self this time. He retained his adult appearance. A child's voice came from next door. Li Jinglong's heart suddenly tightened when he heard young Hung Jun's angry questioning. "Why do we have to move?" Xiao Hung Jun asked. "Why do you always ask why?" Jia Yu said to Xiao Hung Jun. "There's no need to ask so many questions." Kong Xian knocked on the window from the study room, indicating for the two of them to stop arguing outside. Jia Yu said, "Your father is going to be angry. Let's go. Help mother buy vegetables." Jia Yu took Xiao Hung Jun into the kitchen. After a while, she took some money and told Kong Xian that she would go out to buy some alcohol and to mind the children. Kong Xian responded in affirmative and Jia Yu hurried out of the door. Li Jinglong was originally leaning against the wall. The moment he saw Jia Yu's left, he jumped down and quietly approached the door of the study. "Come in." Kong Xian didn't even wait for Li Jinglong to knock on the door and asked, "Who might this visitor be?" Li Jinglong was about to push the door, but his body passed through the door. "Am I a soul?" Li Jinglong was very surprised. After entering, Li Jinglong thought briefly and kowtowed to pay his respects. Kong Xian was startled and hurriedly reached out to help him up. However, when he touched Li Jinglong, he found that he was in an incorporeal form. His body was actually emitting a faint light of the heart lamp. "Are you a successor of the Dai Pankara, from the Chen family?" Kong Xian was shocked. Li Jinglong said, "Please accept my 3 kowtow first. I'll explain everything later." Kong Xian was surprised, but he stopped refusing anymore. He received Li Jinglong's 3 kowtows. Every time Li Jinglong bent down, his forehead touched the ground. When he finally raised his head, Kong Xian instantly realized something. He said in a trembling voice, "You are Li Jinglong." Li Jinglong didn't expect Kong Xian's eyesight to be so sharp that he had managed to recognize him easily. He immediately stood up and nodded. "You are the grown-up Li Jinglong." Kong Xian murmured, "What's going on? How did you manage to come back?" Li Jinglong stared at Kong Xian. Kong Xian motioned for him to sit down as he stared at him intently. Li Jinglong said, "I'd better not sit down. Otherwise, I'll fall down and end up squatting." Kong Xian laughed. Li Jinglong pondered for a moment as he murmured, "Is this a dream?" Uncle, are you in my dream, or, is this a real past event? Zhuangzhou's butterfly dream technique. Kong Xian said, did Yuan Kun ask you to go back in time? Li Jinglong instantly grasped the key point. Kong Xian said that this is not a dream. This is my present and your past. To be precise, it is a past that you cannot change. Li Jinglong said, I have a hunch, uncle, can you please hear me out first? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hung Jun turned around in the darkness and saw numerous bubbles expanded and shattered. That was the future that the Kun god knew. Amongst the countless futures, there is an extremely small bubble. In that bubble, two people were reflected. Li Jinglong returned to the past. He didn't know what the situation in the outside world was. He didn't know whether being delayed here would affect the battle situation in Luoyang in any way. Therefore, he tried to make it short and first told Kong Xian the most important details of why he came back. At the same time, on the battlefield in Luoyang, they are not moving. Lu Su said, what's going on? Mo Rijin and the rest looked up to the sky. A Tai said, should we try attacking now? No, they're too high. Qiu Yangxi frowned. Hung Jun and Zhenji seemed to be connected to it. Attacking it now might be more of a hindrance. The ancient giant beast floated in the air. In front of it was a small piece of frozen space. Hung Jun and Li Jinglong were also floating in the air. Both of their eyes were close, their hair flying in the wind. The battle on the ground was coming to an end. The avian creatures flew into the sky while the attacking beasts were gradually pushed back by the army of soldiers that fell in battle. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Meanwhile, in Chang'an inside the dream. After listening to Li Jinglong's explanation, Kong Xian said, your speculations are not bad. I can teach you something that you have neglected. There are indeed spells in this world that would allow you to go back in time. However, this spell must separate the physical body from the 3 Hun and 7 Po. Li Jinglong was enlightened in an instant. The Kun god's power to see the future use one's 3 Hun and 7 Po to travel through the river of time and glimpse into the future. Whereas Zhuangzhou's butterfly dream technique sent Li Jinglong's soul back to the past. Inside a dream, the soul existed independently from the physical body. This was the best time to send the soul to travel through time. The last time Li Jinglong returned to Chang'an of 16 years ago, it was when his adult soul entered his childhood body. Since he was possessing his childhood body, his adult soul retained all the memories and consciousness of that time. No wonder he had completely forgotten that he knew Hung Jun when he was young. So, at that time, Li Jinglong murmured, I returned to the real past. That's right. Kong Xian replied, you wanted to be sure that I am real and not a part of your dream, right? Dream will only show you something that you already know, so I only had to tell you something that you don't know. For example, I promised Xiaoyu that when Shuang turned 16, he would become Xiaoyu's disciple. This. I already know this, Li Jinglong answered. Kong Xian was a little surprised, and said, Shuang was born in Tianluo Mountain, in the Shu province. I also know this already. Li Jinglong said again. Kong Xian. I once took him to Dunhuang. Li Jinglong, I have met the corpse ghost king and found a way to separate the devil seed from him, so I also know this one as well. Kong Xian said, you actually know so much already? No, even Shuang himself doesn't know. You. Kong Xian seemed to have come to a realization and slowly nodded with a smile in his face. It seems that when you grow up, you would be as good as you are today. Li Jinglong was still frowning. Kong Xian continued, when Shuang was young, he liked that rattle of the corpse ghost king very much. I don't know if the corpse ghost king had already told you this. You don't know who the corpse ghost king is, do you? This, I don't know yet. Li Jinglong said, but I believe you. Then he thought for a moment again and said, I was just thinking that when I asked Akalanatha Akalanatha also appeared in the form of a soul. Kong Xian said seriously, "You can't change the past that has already become a fact." "That's right." Li Jinglong said, "I just came back from the present to push everything to happen and establish the cause of my choice." "That's right." Kong Xian said cheerfully, "You have to think carefully about what you need for me to do. I don't think that you came here just to reminisce with me, right?" Li Jinglong told Kong Xian everything from the beginning of the establishment of the exorcism department. Kong Xian listened from the beginning with a solemn expression. "That is to say." Kong Xian frowned, "You are the person who succeeded Direnja, the founder of the exorcism department, correct?" Li Jinglong nodded. Kong Xian said in deep voice, "Who else is in the exorcism department aside from you?" Li Jinglong thought of his companions in the exorcism department from the moment the 6 artifacts were segregated was a foregone conclusion. This has confirmed his conjecture. The Grey Wolf, the High Priest of Zoroastrianism, the dragon-subduing Tower Saint, Shuang, Li Jinglong murmured. "That is to say, you have to make sufficient preparations to gather your future companions." Kong Xian said seriously. "Yes." Li Jinglong first nodded, then shook his head again and said, "I can't because I am a soul now. I can't write right now. Since I possess my own body, my 9-year-old self will lose the memories of all of these. How would I be able to summon them?" At this point, Li Jinglong vaguely seemed to understand something, and suddenly looked up at Kong Xian. Kong Xian said, "Your purpose is to save my Shuang. I can write the summons for you." Li Jinglong felt like he woke up from dream. "Then please uncle, I will leave this to you but the letters." Kong Xian said, "I will make sure the summons is sent out smoothly, no matter whether I am still alive or not in the future." Li Jinglong. Just who was Kong Xian? He had already long guessed the purpose of Li Jinglong's visit. As the Mahamayuri, he already had a vague sense that he would not live for long. Facing Kong Xian, Li Jinglong felt as if he was looking at another Hung Jun. Father and son looked very similar in appearance, even the heroic spirit in their eyes were the same. The only difference was that Kong Xian had the elegance and temperance that was honed by time. Perhaps in this world, there was nothing that can change him except his wife and his son. However, in the end, he wouldn't be able to protect the things he cared about the most. Kong Xian prepared the paper and ink and asked seriously, "How do you want me to write the summon?" Li Jinglong, who was on the side, saw Kong Xian took out several papers and said, "I still remember the day when I met Hung Jun. It was the 5th day of the 9th lunar month in the 12th year of Tianbao." Kong Xian said, "I will make the necessary arrangement properly, don't worry." Kong Xian stopped writing and seemed to want to ask something. Looking at Li Jinglong, he hesitated whether asking would be breaking some sort of unspoken rule. Li Jinglong seemed to be deep in thought, facing Kong Xian in silence. "Did Shuang survived?" Kong Xian asked. "If you want to know, why not see it for yourself?" Li Jinglong said seriously. Kong Xian trembled as he said, "Would I live long enough to see Shuang grew up?" Li Jinglong didn't answer and only looked at Kong Xian. Then he said with resignation, "To tell you the truth, you and Auntie may not live past this year." The corners of Kong Xian's mouth lifted slightly. After a long silence he said, "As long as Shuang can be happy, it's worth it." Li Jinglong, "But it's all because of a momentary lapse in judgment." "Mother." Xiao Hongjun's voice said outside the study. "Is Dad still not coming out for dinner?" "Hush, he has a guest." Jia Yu's voice answered outside the window. She had obviously been listening for a long time. Li Jinglong turned sideways to look at the window and sighed deeply. "What else do you need me to do?" Kong Xian was a little uneasy and urged, "Speak, young man." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The world spun and the golden light glowed brightly. Hung Jun was once again in the abandoned exorcism department. He stared blankly at the scene before his eyes. It was the moment before his parents died. Xiao Li Jinglong set up a spell array in the courtyard which changed day and night. In the afternoon, under the blazing sun, Xiao Li Jinglong led Xiao Hongjun into the spell array. His body was being burned by a golden light and his whole body was bleeding. "Dad, Mother." Xiao Hongjun knelt in the middle of the array. His face had already burned beyond recognition by the golden flames. He wailed in terrified tone, "Save me. It hurts." "Ah!" Li Jinglong opened his eyes and transformed into a gold-clad warrior. The voice of Derenja rang in his ears. "You already have the sword of wisdom in your hands," Derenja said, "do it." Li Jinglong shivered uncontrollably. His trembling hands pulled shakily the longbow and aimed at Xiao Hongjun in the spell array. "This was definitely not my intention." Li Jinglong choked with sobs, "Hongjun. I'm sorry." Hongjun's soul was floating above the ruined exorcism department. He stared blankly at Li Jinglong and said with a trembling voice, "Jinglong, what are you doing?" Hongjun flew to Li Jinglong and hugged his neck. Then he whispered, "It's all in the past, Jinglong. Why do you want to subject yourself to this again?" Li Jinglong closed his eyes in pain. He tried his best to hold onto the bowstring, unwilling to shoot the arrow. However, he was powerless. His fingers finally let go of the bowstring. At the next moment, the door of the exorcism department collapsed as if the wooden door was washed down by a torrent. Kong Xian rushed towards the spell array, leaving after images in his wake and faced the gold-armored warrior's golden arrow. Kong Xian propped up the pentacolor sacred knives and attacked the golden arrow, one of the 6 artifacts. However, the arrow easily tore through the pentacolor sacred knives in an instant and sank into Kong Xian's chest. Jia Yuz rushed into the spell array as well, her hair became disheveled in her rush. She hugged Hongjun who had been burned into ashes and let out a heart-wrenching scream. Kong Xian knelt on the ground powerlessly. The sword handle appeared in his chest. He trembled and held the sword of wisdom that had pierced his chest. Jia Yuz's waterfall-like black hair instantly turned into snow white. Hongjun did not dare to turn his head, fearing that his tears would break out. Seeing air. Kong Xian was in a daze. He called on with a trembling voice, "Seeing air, look at me." Hongjun sobbed, "Dad. You must be well." Kong Xian's lips trembled as he whispered, "Father and Mother will always protect you." When the words fell, blood dripped from the corners of Kong Xian's lips. He closed his eyes and showed a smile. The hand that was holding the hilt of the sword emitted a strong light. With the flash of that white light, Hongjun suddenly felt a huge force rush towards him and ejected him out of the dream. Li Jinglong staggered forward. He faced the storm that Kong Xian raised and stood in front of his younger self. "You must be remember," the golden armored warrior said in a deep voice. Xiao Li Jinglong didn't come back to his senses until this moment. He turned to look blankly at the golden armored warrior. "Must always have mercy and kindness in heart," Li Jinglong said to his past self. "In the future, there will always be a glimmer of hope. Never fear death, never fear suffering. The living are mere passing travelers. The dead return to their eternal homes." For some reason, what came to Li Jinglong's mind was these 4 lines of a poem. "The heavens and the earth are an inn, for all our grief, we inevitably return to dust." The storm grew stronger. Li Jinglong let go of his hand and left the body of the golden armored warrior. He was suddenly blown out of the dream. *******. In the sky above Luyang, the motionless ancient giant beast set off a shockwave in a short moment. Then it roared loudly and a huge force swept Li Jinglong and Hongjun away. The two of them suddenly opened their eyes in midair. Zhao Yun flew towards Hongjun but Hongjun shouted, "Save Jinglong." Zhao Yun could only fly towards Li Jinglong. At the same time, Qiu Yangxi flew from behind and caught Hongjun. "How did you escape?" Qiu Yangxi shouted with a smile in his voice. Jinglong. Hung Jun had no time to answer. The ancient giant beast was extremely furious as it snarled wildly, "You little thieves!" Immediately after, countless tentacles rushed towards Li Jinglong along with thunder and black fire. At the same time, the human army led by Guo Suiyi had already arrived outside of Luoyang with thousands of troops and cavalries. When they looked up, they saw that the sky had become a battlefield between the exorcists and an ancient giant beast. Li Jinglong landed on the head of the Ba snake and shouted, "Fly higher!" Mo Rijin roared from the ground, "Use whatever killing techniques you have. It's time to take out all of your trump cards." In the darkened sky, the ancient giant beast was so furious. In a split second, the sharp horn on its head summoned thousands of thunder and formed a giant dense net with its tentacles. It was bent on grinding Li Jinglong into fine powder. The Ba snake did her best to break out of the heavy encirclement in all directions and rushed towards the sky. Li Jinglong unsheathed the sword of wisdom from his back and held its scabbard in his hand. He muttered, "So, it turns out to be you." Immediately afterwards, a huge net made of thunder and lightning pressed down. Qiu Yangxi immediately flew lower. Lu Su roared, "Leave this place. The whole Luoyang will be destroyed." In the blink of an eye, the Ba snake leaped into the sky like a fish out of the sea and drew an arc of light. At the highest point, Li Jinglong pulled out the sword of wisdom and said in a deep voice, "With this last artifact, grant my request, Kong Xian." The sword of wisdom flashed with thousands of golden rays. In an instant, it seemed as if divine light was breaking through the sky. As Li Jinglong let it go, it spun and flew towards the ground. In the intertwining rays of light, the sword of wisdom turned into a huge heavenly sword and pierced the ground. Afterwards, the countless ray of light that surrounded the sword spun rapidly. The sword spirit rose from the ground and exploded with a force powerful enough to destroy the world. The godly appearance of Dipankara emerged in brilliance and illuminated the night sky. Then, Mahamayuri had appeared. The earth and heaven veins sensed the powerful force and rotated instantly, forming a vortex. Within the huge vortex of energy, the cry of a peacock resounded through the sky. "Dad!" Hung Jun was stunned. Everyone forgot the battlefield for a moment and stared blankly at the scene in front of them. Mahamayuri shook off the flowing brilliance and emerged covered in armor. Kong Xian was wearing a fiery cloud helmet, black Luo armor with wind thunder jade armor and a pair of Luen war boots. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he rose into the sky. In an instant, the ancient giant beast roared with fear. "How did you? Ergur, long time no see," Kong Xian said in a deep voice. The huge net made of thunder and lightnings pressed down. Kong Xian closed his left hand and the jade peacock plume that Hung Jun was holding suddenly disappeared only to appear in Kong Xian's hand. Afterwards, Kong Xian summoned the pentacolor sacred light and soared into the sky. Divine light spread out and covered the entire Luoyang. The pentacolor sacred light collided with the thunder and lightnings. In an instant, the thunder and lightnings that were filling the sky dissipated. "Your dad's ability," Lu Su murmured. "You. Hung Jun, if I may, are you his biological son?" Hung Jun. Hung Jun dragged the kanji chain on his ankle and jumped onto the roof. He looked up to the sky and felt his whole body trembled. The ancient giant beast roared, "You're already dead, Kong Xian." "My soul hasn't entered the cycle of reincarnation," Kong Xian said indifferently, "because I still have something I need to fulfill." The ancient giant beast's tentacles rolled over. Kong Xian held the pentacolor divine light in his left hand and grabbed air with his right hand. The 4 pentacolor sacred knives that Hung Jun was holding on the roof instantly disappeared. "When you were young," Kong Xian's voice echoed under the sky, "I've never got the chance to teach you any martial arts. So, seeing air, watch carefully." In the next moment, Kong Xian floated in the air and faced the ancient giant beast. He leaned down slightly and raised his hand to guide the flying daggers with his sword fingers. the divine power of Dipankara erupted and the pentacolor sacred knives surged as if they could move mountains and fill the sea. Suddenly, thousands of meteors intertwined and shot out towards the ancient giant beast. The tentacles surrounding the ancient giant beast body suddenly broke and blood spilled from the sky as the beast roared in pain. From below, Hung Jun shouted, "Dad!" Kong Xian waved his hand once again, and the 4 flying knives merged into a glaive. It spun on the air and then slashed out with a thunderous force towards the ground. With a ding sound, the kanji chain on Hung Jun's ankle instantly broke open. Hung Jun shook the flame wings behind his back, like an imprisoned bird that finally got free and flew into the sky. Kong Xian was floating in the air as the spiritual light around him scattered continuously. Li Jinglong knew that once his soul left the sword of wisdom, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long, and thus, he shouted, "There's no more time. Hurry!" Kong Xian waved his right hand and the immortal slaying glaive disintegrated and returned to Hung Jun's hand with the pentacolor sacred light. He then extended his left hand towards the ground and the sword of wisdom flew like a meteor and returned to his hand. "Give the order," Kong Xian said in a low voice, "I've been waiting for this moment." Hung Jun flew towards Kong Xian and raised his hand to wipe away his tears. "Take me there!" Mo Rijin shouted. The white deer carried Mo Rijin and soared into the sky while Yu Zhou carried A Tai. Qiu Yangxi rode on his summoned Qiao and flew into the sky as well. The wielders of the 6 artifacts of Akalanatha attacked the ancient giant beast all at the same time. Li Jinglong pulled the longbow and loaded with the golden arrow. Hung Jun clasped his hands together and the Yao binding rope appeared. Kong Xian turned and flew into the sky. Sword chi crisscrossed and the ancient giant beast roared in pain. Its eyes spewed out devil flame, but it was visibly struggling. The battle in the sky was chaotic. The ancient giant beast tried its best to retreat and escape from Lu Yang. "Don't let it go to the human army!" Lu Su shouted. The human army was situated on the outskirts of Lu Yang. The avian and aquatic creatures received the order and soared into the sky to attack the exorcists. "Shoot the birds down!" Guo Suiyi, who was observing the situation, suddenly barked an order. The Tang army held their strong crossbows and shot arrows into the sky. The attacking avian and aquatic creatures all started to fall like falling stars. The pressure on Li Jinglong and his companions lessened considerably. Everyone injects their mana into the 6 artifacts and the power of Akalanatha started to emit with golden light. But at this moment, the ancient giant beast turned its head and roared. Its eyes spewed out black flames forming countless demonic shadows and tried to grab Hung Jun. Hung Jun blocked it with the pentacolor sacred light only to find out that the pentacolor sacred light could not block the demonic aura. He hurriedly shouted, "Don't worry about me." Li Jinglong abandoned his artifact and activated the heart lamp. It shot outwards and blocked the attack against Hung Jun. The ancient giant beast roared and rushed forward. A monstrous demon fire burst out of its mouth and engulfed Li Jinglong. Kong Xian said in a low voice, "What are you waiting for?" Kong Xian's words rang in his ears. Hung Jun suddenly burst out with a powerful force. With a roar, his left hand drew a circle to summon the pentacolor sacred knives. He let go of the pentacolor sacred light and dragged the pentacolor sacred knives that they like a shooting star with flames on its tail, towards that monstrous darkness. Li Jinglong tried to resist the flame attack with the power of the heart lamp. Yuan Kun's body appeared in the darkness and his eyes spewed out black flames. He pushed Li Jinglong with his hands and 2 blood-colored blades appeared in his palms. "This is your ending," Yuan Kun said in a deep voice. The blade flickered with cold light and the scent of blood filled the air. Just as they were about to reach Li Jinglong's throat, Hung Jun rushed from behind. With a shout, the pentacolor sacred knives flew out and deflected Yuan Kun's blades. In an instant, the blood-colored blade turned into thousands of blades. However, the pentacolor sacred knives also turned into thousands of knives. The glints of the blood-colored blades and the 4 colored knives illuminated the faces of Li Jinglong and Hung Jun in this pitch-black darkness. The projectiles crazily colliding with each other. Li Jinglong shouted, Hung Jun. Hung Jun panted from strain, but he gritted his teeth and endured this tsunami-like force. In the midst of thousands of colliding blades, his divine sense suddenly became incomparably clear. A flying dagger went against the current and passed through the gaps of heavy barrage of blades. With a flash, it spun and pierced Yuan Kun's chest. The dagger dug up through its handle. Yuan Kun wailed and the rainstorm of blades suddenly disappeared. The demon flame suddenly collapsed and exploded in all directions. Then the ancient giant beast roared towards the sky and split with a loud noise. The Kun god flew into the sky with its blood splattering everywhere, while the golden-winged giant Peng plummeted to the ground. "They've separated!" Lu Su shouted. Li Jinglong said, "Lu Su, Yu Zhou, and Zhao Yun, go to deal with the Kun god. The rest of you deal with Qing Xiang." The exorcists immediately heeded the order. Li Jinglong led the group to encircle and deal with Qing Xiang. Lu Su and Zhao Yun flew into the sky to chase the giant Kun. Even if you win for a moment, what awaits you is only eternal death. The giant Kun's blood spilled over the horizon of Luoyang. However, he didn't show any sign of wanting to escape. He spread his 6 wings and opened his huge mouth where a blue glint flickered. "Your death is at hand!" Lu Su shouted angrily. Lu Su and Zhao Yun rushed into the sky. Yu Zhou shouted, "He meant to perish together with us." On the ground, there was Guo Suiyi's 100,000 Tang army and countless beasts were scattered around. Yu Zhou had seen through Yuan Kun's intention. Once it poured out sea water from its mount, countless on the ground will die. Then, if the Kun god would summon thunderbolts together with waves of sea water, all the mortals will die in one fell swoop. However, at this moment, more reinforcements arrived from the west. It was only about 1,000 strong. They were dressed in fiery armor. The general leading the group shouted, "We've made it in time." It was Ashinakayang's voice. Before Lu Su and Zhao Yun could get close, the flood came crashing down with the force of an avalanche. "Wow, no way. We have come across such a big battle as soon as we arrived." Ashinakayang ordered, "Quick, quick. Hit it down from the sky." The newcomers were all Zoroastrian fire warriors brought by Ashinakayang. They dismounted from their horses and started chanting incantations. In an instant, thousands of fire meteors flew from the ground and shot out toward the sky, targeting the Kun god. Ashinakayang released a spell. Flames surrounded his body. He had summoned the Zoroastrian god of war, Barum. With a flaming spear in his hand, he turned it into a blazing flame and pierced toward the giant Kun. The giant Kun roared loudly. The raging blood changed directions, away from the human army on the ground. Yu Zhou rushed across the roof and turned into a long fish in the sky. Then, the thunder bloomed gorgeously in front of him. It was so bright that he could barely keep his eyes open. "Stupid!" The giant Kun's voice shook the sky, "You lowly creature of the aquatic clan." Yu Zhou was speechless. The thunder and lightning struck down crazily like a heavenly tribulation. The scales on Yu Zhou's body were scattered and charred black. Then, an unstoppable furious sea surged towards him. The thunderbolts drew an arc in the raging waves that came down from the sky. At that moment, Yu Zhou only saw the giant Kun spewed sea water as if it wanted to turn Luoyang into a vast swamp. He struggled amidst the surging waves and charged through the arching thunderbolts. However, all the thunderbolts in the world seemed to have gathered together and penetrated his body. Then, a dragon's roar was heard. A pair of golden horns appeared on his forehead and his body transformed into a long dragon. His sharp claws curled as he collided with the giant Kun, trying to twist and turn it. The sea water that the giant Kun was trying to spew on the ground was redirected to pour toward the Luo River. The water of the Luo River suddenly increased. It rushed downstream like an army of thousands of men and horses. "You have accumulated enough merit," Yuan Kun said indifferently. "It's a pity that you..." Yu Zhou's eyes widened. Yuan Kun continued, "One day, you are destined to die in the hands of the human that you were trying to protect. You will die in the hands of the exorcists. Suddenly countless scenes poured into Yu Zhou's mind. The world was vast, white snow fluttered and a dragon was fell. An old man walked towards it decked with the 7 artifacts. He reached out and covered his bright eyes. Suddenly Lu Su rushed to the top of the head of the giant Kun. He suddenly pressed his hand to the forehead of the giant Kun and shouted, "Wake up!" With a loud bang, the illusions were forcibly expelled from Yu Zhou's mind. Yu Zhou paused for a moment. The giant Kun tried to turn his head in an effort to break free of Lu Su's control. Then the large yellowish-gray dragon in the sky said in a deep voice, "I don't care. Yuan Kun, you." Immediately after that, Yu Zhou grabbed the giant Kun and exerted force with his dragon claws to tore off 2 of the giant Kun's wings. The giant Kun howled in pain. The Ba snake exclaimed, "You're a dragon now. Don't forget your brother." Then, the Ba snake coiled around and bit the giant Kun's back. The giant Kun lost all of his strength and fell to the ground with an earth-shattering sound. On the outskirts of Luoyang, when the giant Kun hit the ground, the Tang army fled one after another, holding their crossbow. The bodies of the dragon, the Ba snake and the Kun god all shrunk and they all transformed into their human form. Yuan Kun stumbled and spat out a mouthful of blood. He knelt on the ground. The army surged forward again and pointed their crossbows at Yuan Kun. Inside Luoyang, the golden-winged giant Peng stirred up a hurricane. The demonic flame around its body was burning brightly. It soared into the sky and rushed into a sea of thick clouds. Kong Xian released a strong energy from the ground and engulfed everyone. The exorcists immediately flew into the sky and broke through the clouds. High up in the sky, the sea of clouds rolled. A lone moon illuminated the horizon. The golden-winged giant Peng spread his wings and cried out. Suddenly, the wind and clouds surged. Devil Qi swept through the heavy clouds and suddenly formed a hurricane. At the same time, on the ground in Luoyang, the dead bodies of those who perished emitted black miasma. They rose into the sky and gathered around Qing Xiang. "I never thought, Kong Xian, you and me, that such a day." Qing Xiang's voice resounded through the sky. "Back then, I only hoped that one day you could be free of this devil seed. Why? How could you treat me like this?" Kong Xian's soul gazed at Qing Xiang quietly and whispered, "We will meet again in our next reincarnation, Ergur." Li Jinglong shouted, "All members of the exorcism department get ready." Everyone shouted, "We're ready." Li Jinglong said in a deep voice, "Lend me the powers of your artifacts. Hung Jun, lend me a hand." Everyone surrounded the gold-winged giant Peng. Mo Rijin offered the moon eclipse bow, Atai offered the great sun ring, Kong Xian offered the sword of wisdom, Qi Yangxi offered the Yao subduing staff and Hung Jun offered the Yao binding rope. Li Jinglong's body shone brightly with divine powers. Dai Pankara appeared in the night sky. The heart lamp activated and shone on the ground and towards the golden-winged giant Peng. The golden-winged giant Peng struggled but as he flew. "It's over," Hung Jun said in a low voice and immediately folded his hands. Mo Rijin's moon eclipse bow and Atai's great sun ring flew towards Hung Jun. Kong Xian's sword of wisdom and Qiu Yangxi's Yao subduing staff flew towards Li Jinglong. Hung Jun held the moon eclipse bow and turned in the air. The Yao binding rope was used as the bowstring. With the moon eclipse bow in his hand, the 9 characters on the great sun ring spun and went to the bow. Li Jinglong spread his palms. The heart lamp in his palm shone brightly. Under the strong light, the sword of wisdom became the arrowhead, the Yao subduing staff became the body of the arrow and the golden arrow became the feathers of the arrow. Hung Jun carried the giant bow in his arm and Li Jinglong pulled the giant arrow and placed it on the moon eclipse bow. The exorcists and Kong Xian shouted at the same time. They exerted their mana and suddenly, the bow and arrow emitted a strong light. The golden-winged giant Peng made a final struggle and let out a defiant roar. Li Jinglong reached out with his left hand and hugged Hung Jun's waist. Hung Jun pressed his elbow to the bow while Li Jinglong shouted and pulled the bowstring with his right hand. Akalanatha, lend me your divine power. Li Jinglong shouted. The words of Akalanatha resounded throughout the divine land. The 9 characters vibrated and returned to the bow. The light of the heart lamp shone through the night. The divine form of Dipankara closes its hands. The light in the sky suddenly disappeared and the whole world was engulfed in darkness. Only the light of the bow and arrow was shining as bright as a sun. The arrow sailed through like the breeze that rolled up at the creation of the world. It was also like the thunder bursting at the end of the world. It created all beings and destroyed everything, like when the sun exploded and the stars burst. The arrows left the bowstring. Exorcism. A strong light flash, awakening all the sleeping beings in the world. It was like the thunder and lightnings that split the sky and illuminated the divine land. The golden-winged giant Peng let out a sky-shattering roar as the light penetrated his body. Just for a moment, a soul turned into a figure of Yang Kuazhong emerged from the body of the golden-winged giant Peng. It turned into a dragon spirit and flew to the sky. It had been freed. Above the sea of clouds, the golden-winged giant Peng was burning in the light. The light penetrated the devil seed in his heart. Then, a sea of fire covered the sky and burned through the billowing clouds. A ray of dawn turned as the exorcists floated in the sea of clouds. Qing Xiang appeared in his human form. He was pressing his chest and was bowed with pain. He whispered, "All kinds of tribulations, return to me." Qing Xiang. Hong Jun sighed sadly. Qing Xiang said, "You gave up the chance to live an eternal life and lose the only chance to save our race. Hong Jun, won't you really not regret it?" "I saw death in life." Hong Jun hovered beside Li Jinglong and said softly to Qing Xiang, "But I also saw life in death. I saw countless reincarnations of life and death. It happened to human as well as to Yaoguai. It's the same for the 2 races. And no matter when, or where." He smiled slightly, and continued, "There will always be people like me and Jinglong. I saw a young man riding the Ba snake. The Ba snake turned into a dragon and dispelled Mara. The Holy Land will be revived after it declined. I saw the collapse of the Temple of the Thousand Yao, but I also saw new life growing in the ruins. I saw the vegetation withered, but I also saw the phoenix rise from the ashes." Hung Jun finally said, "Heaven and earth, all living things, us, you, and them. It's always been like this since the beginning of time." Hung Jun put his palms together. Qing Xiang smiled sadly and said, "Ah. Forget it." The exorcists put their palms together and watched the devil seed dissipate. Qing Xiang's body shone and turned into spots of light. It rose to the rolling river of the heavenly veins. It had been like this in the past, at present, and so would in the future. "Son, I have to go," Kong Xian said to Hung Jun. Suddenly the spell on the exorcist's feet that was keeping them afloat broke and everyone plummeted down as they broke through from the sea of clouds. Everyone screamed at the same time. Hung Jun looked at them nervously, but Kong Xian said, "It will be fine. Someone will catch them. I just want to talk to you." On the ground at Luoyang, everyone was staring at the sky at that moment. When they fell, Yu Zhou immediately transformed into a dragon and took off. Qiu Yangxi summoned a Qiao, and took the lead to catch everyone. "Do you really have to?" Zhao Yun asked sourly. Yu Zhou replied, "I want to show off. Can't I?" Meanwhile, on top of the Qiao, Qiu Yangxi turned to Jinglong and asked, "Do you want to go up and see?" Li Jinglong waved his hand and said, "Nah, I'll wait for them on the ground." He knew that Kong Xian and Hung Jun would have many things they wanted to say to each other. However, Kong Xian would have to leave the world at daybreak and enter the cycle of reincarnation. Kong Xian and his son sat side by side on a cloud, facing the east. The morning light swept up a golden splendor in the sea of clouds. "No matter how many years pass," Kong Xian said, "at any time and in any place, there will always be people like us." "You and mother, too?" Hung Jun asked. At first I didn't know that she was the reincarnation of a goddess. Kong Xian thought for a moment and continued, after being reincarnated again and again, she has long regarded herself as a human. Hong Jun suppressed the complex emotions in his heart and whispered, Jinglong changed the cause and effect so that you would have been inside the Sword of Wisdom all this while. Why didn't you come out and see me earlier? The secret spell imprisoned me inside the Sword of Wisdom. Ever since I died, I can only leave the Sword of Wisdom once. Kong Xian turned his head to look at his son and said with a smile, after the long night ends, day will come. I will dissipate and return to the heavenly veins. Did they ever tell you how much you look like me? Hung Jun nodded, and Kong Xian also nodded. Do you hate us? Kong Xian asked, do you hate father and mother for giving birth to you? How could I? Hung Jun spoke with trembling voice, I have never hated anyone. Kong Xian said, Dad has let your mother down and also, let you down. However, Dad knows that neither of you hate me for it. Whenever you miss Dad, just look into a mirror. Kong Xian smiled again and said, Dad will always be by your side. Under the sunlight, Kong Xian's figure gradually faded. Hung Jun couldn't stop gasping for breath as pain and sorrow enveloped him instantly. He had yearned for his father and mother for so many years. He was waiting for so many years, but he only saw this brief glimpse of them in the end. The living are mere passing travelers. The dead return to their eternal homes. The heavens and the earth are an inn. For all our grief, we inevitably return to dust. Why be sad? Son, you and I are destined to meet again one day through the cycle of reincarnation. Hung Jun, but you. In our next life, I will be your son and you will be my father. Kong Xian said again with a smile, it's a promise. As he spoke, he stretched out his little finger. Hung Jun went to hook his finger with him, but the place where his father was empty. Under the light of the sun, Kong Xian's soul finally disappeared. However, at this moment, Hung Jun suddenly saw a flash of a female figure flying over from the heavenly veins. She opened her arms and hugged Kong Xian tenderly. Seeing air. Jia Yu said softly, you are a good boy. Mother is very proud of you. The light of day illuminated heaven and earth, and the heavenly vein disappeared in the clear blue sky. Hung Jun was still sitting on the cloud in a daze. After an unknown period of time, a pair of arms suddenly passed through the clouds and hugged him around the waist. It was Li Jinglong who held him in his arms without any explanation. Let's go home. Li Jinglong said, from now on, we will never be separated again. Hung Jun's mood suddenly improved. After some time, he somehow noticed the dragon at Li Jinglong's feet and asked, where did this dragon came from? I don't know. Li Jinglong said casually, it insisted on coming to pick you up. It's me. Yu Zhou roared angrily. Wow. You really turned into a dragon? Hung Jun asked in disbelief. How did you do it? Did you jump over the dragon's gate? Li Jinglong said politely to Yu Zhou, I'm so sorry. There are too many things that surprised everyone today. The matter of you jumping through the dragon's gate and transformed into a dragon, everyone didn't even have the time be shocked. Yu Zhou's tail emerged from the sea of clouds, a small bit of it was even burned. It whined in despair, you. Hung Jun. Of course you didn't see me jumped over the dragon's gate. I jumped at nothing. Hung Jun chuckled loudly and quickly tried to appease Yu Zhou. The yellow dragon descended to the ground. The waters of the Lu River have receded, leaving the grounds of Luoyang in a mess. Li Jinglong shouted, where's everyone? Where did you all go? Over here. Qiu Yangxi shouted. Hung Jun was almost tripped by the person laying in the mud. That person was actually Mo Rejin, who weakly called, here. Lu Su also laid in the mud and said from a distance, I am over here. Hung Jun dash. How come even you? Everyone was laying on the muddy ground in complete disarray, blending with the earth. Li Jinglong searched for a long while but failed to locate Ashinis Yang. Only after asking the rear did he found out that Ashanis Yang was with his Zoroastrian army and the Tang army, who were all at the Lu River at the outskirts of Luyang. The giant Kun's blood flowed all over the ground and was piled up on the bank of the river. The exorcists walked slowly towards the river bank. The huge monster was covered in white bones and its flesh has almost peeled off. Yuan Kun, is he dead? Chu Yangxi said, he and the Kun Peng was one and the same. When you shot Qing Xiang in the sky, he fell to the ground and died. Hung Jun put his hand on the side of the giant Kun. The corpse ghost king and Yu Zayun led the remaining Yao clan while the avian race landed on the ground, full of fear. I pardon you all. Hong Jun said. The human race and the Yao race were divided into two camps, staring at each other vigilantly. Li Jinglong said to Guo Suiyi, General Guo, Luoyang has now been reclaimed. As for the Yao, Li Jinglong's face have a very complex expression. Guo Suiyi thought about it and said, naturally it's up to you to mediate. Guo Suiyi and the 100,000 army saw how Li Jinglong and the others fought. Who would dare overstep their authority? It was already fortunate that they weren't being bullied by the Yaoguai. Hung Jun said, this Kun god was once the king of the aquatic clan. We should bury him in the water. The Yao stepped forward together and pushed Yuan Kun's body into the Luo River. The giant Kun's corpse entered the water and drifted with the current towards the Yellow River to finally return to the vast sea. At the same time, a falling star flew towards Hangzhou and dropped into the dragon subduing tower. On the top floor of the dragon subduing tower, Yaming's soul appeared. Yang Kua's Hong soul slowly came to his father and knelt in one knee. On the banks of Luo River. Well, all those who have no place to return to, can go to our sacred land. Hung Jun instructed the remaining Yao. I'll see you there after a few days. The corpse ghost king nodded and said in a deep voice, long live the king. The Yao said one after another, long live the king. Long live. Long live. The remaining 50,000 Yao knelt on the ground. Hung Jun gestured for them to get up. After all, it wasn't good to do anything else while the Tang army was watching. Yu Zayun walked a few steps forward. Li Jinglong remembered that Guo Suiyi had seen Yang Yahuan more than once. If Yu Zayun transformed into the form of the imperial concubine, Guo Suiyi might accuse him of instructing the Yaoguai of bewitching the emperor and he might not be able to clear his name. Therefore, he hurriedly signaled for Yu Zayun not to transform into her human form at this time. Yu Zayun understood Li Jinglong and thus she merely asked, is His Majesty returning to Chang'an? Li Jinglong resolutely said, Fox King, I will make arrangements for you. With this simple question and answer exchanged between the man and the fox, Li Jinglong understood that Yu Zayun still wanted to see Li Longji. Yu Zayun was merely trying to secure this promise, so she smiled and said, thank you. Then we'll bring everyone to the sacred land first. I promise that we won't cause any trouble for you. Hung Jun was at a loss. What are you talking about? In an instant, the army of Yaoguai left in a grandiose manner, marching away in front of the Tang army. Li Jinglong and Guo Suiyi then discussed the matter of handing over Luyang. The city was almost destroyed. Li Jinglong thought all was good. It's good that no one was asking for compensation. All right. Hung Jun returned to the mud where the rest of his companions were sitting stretched out. Li Jinglong hadn't returned yet. The battle was finally over, but for some reason, he couldn't help but feel an inexplicable sense of loss. Your dad was so powerful. Lu Su said, how come you're not as good as him? Hung Jun replied, Lu Su, can you not bring it up? He had been cultivating for thousands of years. Chu Yangxi said, how many years has Hung Jun been cultivating? How can they be compared? Everyone thought about it and laughed. Hung Jun then asked, where are we going next? Home, of course. Atai said. Your sister-in-law hasn't come over yet. Hung Jun thought about where exactly home was and asked again, are we going back to Chengdu? Chang'an. Qiu Yangxi smiled. Guo Suiyi had been called back. I just heard about it. He was not there just now. Lu Su said. Hung Jun suddenly remembered that Chang'an had been recovered, which meant that they could return to the exorcism department again. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. On the third day of the fourth month, the Tang army was still fighting with the remnants of Shi Siming's troop. Everyone at the exorcism department returned to Chang'an. The remnants of the mass evacuation still lingered in the city. Many people had already moved back to Guangzhou. The capital of the Tang dynasty was undergoing massive reconstruction. For the time being, there were no Yaoguai causing trouble of any kind. The demonic miasma around the Guangzhou area had been completely purified by the divine arrow that destroyed the devil seed. The imperial family was still holding court in Lingyue. It seemed that the imperial court had learned their lesson and was still afraid. They probably wouldn't be able to move back in a year. A caravan of Hu merchants brought to Raindoct and Chenfeng from Bashu. In summer, before the cicadas began to sing, Chenfeng was reunited with Li Jinglong and Hung Jun as well as the rest of the exorcists. He immediately threw himself into Hung Jun's arms and cheered non-stop. Chenfeng asked, "Let's fight Yaoguai, yeah?" Qiu Yangxi replied, "There aren't any Yaoguai to fight." That summer night, everyone sat in the courtyard to enjoy the cool breeze. Chenfeng was eating watermelon as he said, "Zhao Zilong is a Yaoguai. I am a dragon." Yu Zhou said angrily, "I am a dragon. How can I be a Yaoguai?" Zhao Yun took the initiative and said, "I am a Yaoguai, Your Highness. You can fight with me. I will play with you." Everyone. Qiu Yangxi shook his fan and looked at his letter intently. Hung Jun asked, "What's wrong?" "Grandpa wants me to go back." Qiu Yangxi said. "I want to go to your house to play." Chenfeng said. Qiu Yangxi glanced at Chenfeng and said, "Now is no good. How about next year?" Li Jinglong realized that Qiu Yangxi might be going back this time to prepare for Qiu's funeral. After all, his grandfather was already very old. "Go back tomorrow and spend more time with your grandfather," Li Jinglong said to Qiu Yangxi. Hung Jun also felt something and patted Qiu Yangxi on the shoulder. Qiu Yangxi just smiled at them. Ashinis Yang said, "We have to go back first, too. We just brought everyone to a new place to stay. The king and queen haven't even seen the new place, yet." "Hung Jun, are you going to come with us?" Tu Raindoct asked with a smile. Hung Jun wanted to go but he couldn't bear to leave this place, yet. Li Jinglong told them, "It's a long journey. Your people haven't even settled down properly yet. We shouldn't disturb you. We'll go and take a look next spring." Atai said to Hung Jun, "Ho Bi must come." Hung Jun said, "I've been waiting to ask a long time ago. What does Hai Mi Ho Bi meant?" Hai Mi Ho Bi, Ashinis Yang said, means a dear, warm, passionate greetings. Don't listen to his nonsense. Tu Raindoct interrupted Ashian Xiang and said, "Ho Bi means darling one or dearest one. Are you going to introduce a Ho Bi to everyone?" Mo Rijin joked. Li Jinglong quickly winked at him but Ashinis Xiang smiled and said, "Don't worry. I meant to bring him this time but after thinking about it, I decided to leave him to look after the tribe." "Whoa, really?" Everyone immediately kicked up a fuss and hurriedly asked Ashinakayan to tell them everything. Ashinakayan quickly waved his hand and said, "We haven't made any promises yet." The next day, Li Jinglong and the others sent several people off. Mo Rijin and Lu Su came back leisurely. Seeing that Chenfeng was pestering Li Jinglong and Hung Jun all day long, Mo Rijin looked at the little boy for a long time and suddenly thought of something. The exorcism department had been reinstated for a long time but they have yet to receive any case in Chang'an. Only Yu Zhou and Zhao Yun traveled between the sacred land and Chang'an. The Yao and the human race were coexisting peacefully. Mo Rijin couldn't help but feel a little despondent. On the 7th day of the 7th month, the Milky Way crossed the sky. Chang'an's West City Market reopened. Everyone gathered in the courtyard for a drink. Morajin knocked on the wine glass with his chopsticks and said, "Zenchi, I want to go home. Even you want to leave?" Hung Jun was very reluctant to part with everyone. His gaze landed at Lu Su. He was most reluctant to be parted with Lu Su. Lu Su acted as if he had been wronged and said to Morajin, "I'm not going." "Go." Li Jinglong smiled, "Why won't you like to go? The exorcism department is not a prison. There's no case to investigate anyways. We will also go outside one of these days." Hung Jun remembered that Li Jinglong had promised him something, and one of them was to sample all the delicious food in the realm. Unfortunately, the Ungshi rebellion was not over yet. It was still far from prosperous times, so he couldn't indulge much. Morajin's flushed face indicated that he was tipsy. He smiled and said, "We will go back to Shiwei. Lu Su wants a daughter. I'll ask the wolf god to see if there's a way." "He is a man." Hung Jun exclaimed, "How can you ask the wolf god for this kind of thing?" Lu Su said, "Don't listen to his nonsense. Isn't he himself called the wolf god?" Hung Jun thought about it and couldn't help but feel that it sounded very strange. Li Jinglong only laughed and patted Morajin's head, saying, "You're drunk. Don't drink anymore." "I'm really not," Morajin muttered. He lowered his head a little and murmured, "Feng Er is so cute." "Then why are you so fierce with him?" Lu Su laughed until his stomach hurt. Hung Jun knew that Morajin liked children, so he said to Lu Su, "Maybe there's some potion that could make a man." "There's none." "I can't," Lu Su was panicked. "Don't tease me, Hung Jun. I'll get mad at you." Hung Jun got up with a smile and helped Morajin back to his room with Lu Su. The next day, when Li Jinglong woke up, he saw Morajin and Lu Su in their room. All their necessities were packed, but they were bringing only a few robes with them, indicating that they only meant to leave temporarily. Yu Zhou and Zhao Yun were nominally Hung Jun's right and left protectors, and they often traveled between Chang'an and Bashu. In the spring of the following year, the corpse ghost king at the sacred land asked Hung Jun for Yu Zhou's help to move some boulders in preparation for expansion in several areas. Hung Jun sent the both of them. "All right. Now only the two of us are left." Hung Jun watched for Li Jinglong's response after he had sent Zhao Yun away. "What about your son?" Li Jinglong gestured for Hung Jun to look at Chen Feng, who was shoveling mud in the corner. Hung Jun facepalmed and said, "I forgot. How long would it take before you get bored of living here?" Li Jinglong asked, "When will you go to the sacred land to attend to your kingly duties?" "I'll be wherever you are. Hung Jun haven't had enough of living in Chang'an yet." "I'll be wherever you are." Li Jinglong smiled and kissed Hung Jun's cheek. Hung Jun only felt that no matter how long he lived his life, he would never get tired of being with Li Jinglong every day. Changfeng was lively and active, so whenever he went to sleep, he would sleep for a long time. Moreover, he had already gotten used to sleeping in a separate room. Whenever he was awake, Li Jinglong resisted touching Hung Jun in front of their son. However, as soon as Changfeng took a nap in the afternoon, he could do whatever he wanted. When night fell and everything was quiet, he could completely let himself go. In the end, Hung Jun couldn't take it anymore and made an agreement with Li Jinglong that they could only do it a maximum of 3 times a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon and once in the evening. However, this rule only worked during winter but not during spring. When spring came, Li Jinglong didn't have any case to deal with. Li Jinglong seemed to also have a lot of reserve. When spring came, he was always in the mood, like a male dog in heat. There wasn't a moment when he didn't want to be entangled with Hung Jun. Feng Er seems to have gone out. Li Jinglong looked out of the room this one fine spring day. "Not allowed," Hung Jun said immediately. "Last time, he came back just right after I took off my clothes. Can you wait until tonight?" Li Jinglong cajoled, "Then what about a hug and a kiss?" However, Hung Jun knew that once he gave in, it would not end up with just a kiss, as Li Jinglong would want to do it until the end. Just like when one watched an opera, no one will leave at the beginning of the act. Therefore, he bargained, "Fine, just one kiss and then I'll leave to buy groceries." As he said that, he lightly kissed Li Jinglong's lips and quickly left. Before he left, Hung Jun ordered, "Continue compiling your records of exorcism. I'm still waiting to see it." Li Jinglong could only pull himself together. Then he went to the study to organize the records of the Yaogui that they have encountered over the years. There was the fox Yao, the Aoi, the god of plagues, the snow woman, a phoenix. The spring breeze chased the flying peach blossom. The blue sky was clear in this fine spring day. Chang'an had recovered its vitality and the city was thriving. Hung Jun passed by the West Market. A bookstore had just opened and outside it, a few children surrounded a stall. Gambling at such a young age. Hung Jun said, "That's not good." The children looked up, and one of them shouted, "Ah!" Hung Jun suddenly realized, wasn't this his son? "You Feng heir." Hung Jun became angry. Chen Feng hurriedly said, "Throw one for me." Hung Jun didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. Throw what? It was a small stall that sold pitching pots with wooden figures, porcelain vases, and antiques. They were all sort of valuables that were collected during the chaos of war. There was a pot placed in front of each item and they used it to make money. 1 copper coin for 1 arrow to throw inside the pot. Chen Feng took a fancy to a gilded copper dragon kui. Hung Jun's mouth twitched. Wasn't this from the Yang residence in the past? Before, imperial concubine Yang would often place a plate in this dragon kui filled with pastry. Hung Jun used to eat the pastry and threw the plate. He didn't know why Chang Feng would like this. "Leave it to me." Hung Jun thought to himself, "This father never missed with my flying knife. Throwing arrow into a pot is a piece of pastry." Thus, he rolled up his sleeves, bought 10 arrows and threw them. Half a shishan later, Chang Feng quickly ran in from outside the alley. "Dad, dad, dash!" Chen Feng called out loudly. He opened the curtain to the study and looked inside. Li Jinglong walked out, squatted down to level with Chen Feng and asked, "What's wrong?" "Mother lost all the money for grocery shopping." Chen Feng secretly whispered in Li Jinglong's ear, "He wants you to take some money to him." Li Jinglong. Li Jinglong hugged and kissed him on the face. But he said, "This is impossible." "Did he gamble the money?" Chen Feng went to the porch to get a teacup and drank a little to quench his thirst. Li Jinglong frowned deeply and asked Chen Feng again. Chen Feng couldn't hide it, so he had to tell Li Jinglong everything. Then he urged Li Jinglong to quickly take out some money. Li Jinglong had no choice but to take 2 gold ingots and hold onto Chen Feng's hand as they walked towards the market. Hung Jun finished throwing 50 arrows and had already used all his money. So, he had to stand there and watch as other threw 1 arrow at a time. He thought to himself that he mustn't lose the item that Chang Feng wanted. Besides, why couldn't he hit it when others could? Hung Jun saw Li Jinglong was coming over and said, "Why don't you give it a try? I owe you 20 copper coin." Li Jinglong. Li Jinglong looked at the booth and instantly knew what was going on. When he was still a young man, he spent a lot of time in leisurely pursuits. The pitching of pots and turntables in the stall had to be rigged. What little tricks could deceive him? "Quick!" Hung Jun said, "I want to win that copper dragon kui for your son." "I'm so angry." "I can't win it either," Li Jinglong said with a smile. "With my luck, if even you can't do it, how can I?" The stall owner looked at Li Jinglong suspiciously. This fellow was a foreigner and didn't know that Li Jinglong used to be famous in the capital. He said, "Did you bring money? This is a small business, so I don't accept credit." Li Jinglong threw a gold ingot onto the plate with a dang sound. The onlookers all came around to watch the commotion. "Change it to 40 arrows." Li Jinglong said, give me 10 arrows first and remember the remaining ones. All right. The stall owner thought that a fat sheep had come. Li Jinglong held an arrow and waited. He moved it from his left hand to his right hand, then from his right hand to his left hand. After aiming with it for a long time, he put it down and said to Hung Jun, "My luck is really bad." "Then forget it," Hung Jun said with smiled, "let's go home." "Don't you want to pitch any more?" Li Jinglong asked. Li Jinglong held an arrow in one hand and leaned over without looking at the pot. Hung Jun thought Li Jinglong wanted to talk to him, but he didn't expect that Li Jinglong would suddenly kiss him on the lips. The onlookers instantly cheer. At that time, there were many cut sleeves during the Tang dynasty and intimate relations between men were very common. People on the street only found it funny. Immediately afterwards, Li Jinglong threw the arrow and with a dang sound, it entered the pot. Hung Jane and Chen Feng immediately cheered together. Li Jinglong threw the arrow again and with a dang sound, it went inside another pot. It happened again and again until all the pots in the stall was hit with an arrow. The stall owner's face suddenly turned ashen as Li Jinglong said, "Everyone come up and have a share of the prices." The bystanders rushed up and except for Chen Feng's copper dragon kui, the rest of the items were immediately taken up. Li Jinglong signaled the stall owner to quickly put up the next batch of pots. The stall owner declared, "It's time to close the stall. I'm not putting up another set." Li Jinglong said, "We are also a small business. How we can let you go?" There was another burst of laughter. Hung Jun felt that the stall owner was probably trying to catch a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. He suddenly understood what happened and said, "Let him go. What he did wasn't that bad." Li Jinglong let the stall owner go amidst the laughter. The stall owner ran away in a hurry. Li Jinglong let Chen Feng climbed on his back. He carried him while Hung Jun and him was buying groceries, then they go home together. "Didn't you say that your luck was bad?" Hung Jun teased. Li Jinglong said, "I don't rely on luck, I relied on strength." As he said that, he showed the magnet hidden in his sleeves. Hung Jun suddenly understood. Under the setting sun, Chen Feng had fallen asleep on Li Jinglong's back. Hung Jun said, "Then, do you rely on strength to fight?" "It's all strength," Li Jinglong said in all seriousness, "ever since I met you, I've given up all my luck." Hung Jun and Li Jinglong were standing in front of the alley. Li Jinglong was carrying Chen Feng on his back. Hung Jun had a vague sense of déjà vu as he felt that the scene was very familiar. He just couldn't remember where he had seen it before. "Have you ever been lucky then?" Hung Jun looked at Li Jinglong with dissatisfaction. Li Jinglong said, "Only once in my life." "Oh? When?" "It was in one spring day, I climbed over the wall of my house and met you. Now that I think about it, that time I really did spend all my luck for the rest of my life." The end of the main story.